Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Haribo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Jayo Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe. Jayo Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bolo. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Ashtotar Sat Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Savior of the whole universe, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Ashtotar Sat Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mathura Dham Ki, Dwarka Dham Ki, जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की, मायापुर नवदीप धाम की, गंगामयी की, जमुनामयी की, भक्ति देवी की, तुलसी देवी की, सांबेर भक्त वृंद की, शिल प्रभुपाद की, शिल प्रभुपाद की, शिल प्रभुपाद की, गौर प्रेमानंद. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gaura. So today we are going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 1, the third verse.
That's not the verse schedule for today. There's no verse schedule for today.
There's no purport?
There's no verse schedule for today. It's a Radhastami special class.
Well, I'm giving the class, so I'm going to give class on this verse, and then I'll talk about Srimati Radharani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasang Tato Jayamudiriyet Ashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. May I get the fourth canto Bhagavatam? Please repeat after me. Prajapati Sa Bhagavan. Does anybody have reading glasses? Can I? Oh, I know what. I'll use my cell phone for the night. Ruchi Tasyam Ajijanat Mithunam Brahma Varchasvi Paramena Samadhina Bhagavan. This is really hard for me to read. Would somebody else like to? Oh, it's there. Prajapatita Bhagavan Ruchitasyamaji Janat Prasnam Pramavarchasvi Paramena Samadhina Prajapati sa Bhagavan. Ruchitasyamaji Janat. Mitunam Brahma Varchasvi. Paramena Samadhina.
Prajapati sa Bhagavan.
Prajapati sa Bhagavan.
Ruchistasyam ajijanat.
Ruchistasyamaji Janat.
Mitunam Brahma Varchasvi.
Mithunam Brahma Varchasvi.
Paramena Samadhina.
Paramena Samadhina. Prajapati sa Bhagavan. Ruchistasyamaji Janat. Mithunam Brahma Varchasvi. Paramena Samadhina. Prajapati sa Bhagavan. Ruchistasyamaji Janat. Mithunam Brahma Varchasvi. Paramena Samadhina.
Prajapati sa Bhagavan.
Prajapati sa Bhagavan.
Ruchistasyam ajijanat.
Ruchistasyamaji Janat.
Mitunam Brahma Varchasvi.
Mithunam Brahma Varchasvi.
Paramena Samadhina.
Paramena Samadhina. Ladies. Prajapati sa Bhagavan. Paramena Samadhina. Prajapati sa Bhagavan. Paramena Samadhina. Anybody else? Prajapati, one who is entrusted with begetting children. Saha, he, Bhagavan, the most opulent. Ruchi, the great sage Ruchi. Tasyam, in her, Aji Janat, gave birth. Mithunam, couple. Brahma Varchasvi, spiritually very much powerful. Paramena, with great strength. Samadhina, in trance. Translation, Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot one son and one daughter by his wife, Akuti. Please repeat after me. Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot one son and one daughter by his wife, Akuti. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada is personally speaking to each one of us. Right? It's non-different than Srila Prabhupada sitting here on the Vyasa-san and saying this to us. Keep that in mind as we're hearing Srila Prabhupada. The word Brahma Varchasvi is very significant. Ruchi was a Brahmana, and he executed the Brahminical duties very rigidly. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Brahminical qualifications are control of the senses, control of the mind, cleanliness within and without, development of spiritual and material knowledge, simplicity, truthfulness, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, etc. There are many qualities which indicate a Brahminical personality, and it is understood that Ruchi followed all the Brahminical principles rigidly. Therefore, he is specifically mentioned as Brahma Varchasvi, one who is born of a Brahmana father, but does not act as a Brahmana, is called in Vedic language a Brahma Bandhu, and is calculated to be on the level of Shudras and women. Thus, in the Bhagavatam, we find that Mahabharata was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva for Stri Shudra Brahma Bandhu. Stri means women, Shudra means the lower class of civilized human society, and Brahma Bandhu means persons who are born in the families of Brahmanas, but do not follow the rules and regulations carefully. All of these three classes are called less intelligent. They have no access to the study of the Vedas, which are specifically meant for persons who have acquired the Brahminical qualifications. This restriction is based not upon any sectarian distinction, but upon qualification. The Vedic literatures cannot be understood unless one has developed the Brahminical qualifications. I'm going to read that sentence again. The Vedic literatures cannot be understood unless one has developed the Brahminical qualifications. It is regrettable, therefore, that persons who have no Brahminical qualifications and have never been trained under a bona fide spiritual master nevertheless comment on Vedic literatures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. For such persons cannot deliver their real message. Ruchi was considered a first-class Brahmana. Therefore, he is mentioned here as Brahma Varchasvi, one who had full prowess in Brahminical strength. Prajapati sa Bhagavan Ruchis tasyam ajijanat mithunang Brahma Varchasvi paramena samadhina. Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot one son and one daughter by his wife, Akuti. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinami. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. So let us remember, Srila Prabhupada is sitting here on the Vyasa-san. We should not think this is a statue or something. Srila Prabhupada is 100% personally present, sitting upon this Vyasa-san. So we are praying for his blessing that we may repeat his teachings without deviation, because we tend to deviate, but I'm praying that I will not deviate. So the Brahminical qualifications are required, or we cannot understand, we cannot appreciate, we cannot relish the Vedic scriptures. But we must understand the Brahminical qualifications are open to everyone. Anyone can become a Brahmana. And Srila Prabhupada demonstrated, although it was very unusual, at least since the Vedic age, there were Brahmins in the Vedic age, but in recent Indian history there were not women Brahmins. But Akuti obviously was Brahminically qualified. Otherwise, how could she have produced such children as Yagya, the personality of Godhead? So Ruchi and Akuti were both Brahmanas by qualification. And anyone, including women, can become Brahmanas by qualification. In fact, in our movement, the women are also just as able to become Brahmanas as the men are. How? Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mame vaishyasi satyante pratijani priyosi me. We can all become Brahmanas by remembering Krishna. Manmana bhavamad bhakto, by becoming devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Sri Radha Govinda. Madhyaji, and by worshipping the deities, Mang Namaskuru, and by offering obeisances to Sri Sri Radha Govinda and Lord Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra and Sri Sri Gauranitai and Srila Prabhupada, we can all, in fact Srila Prabhupada wants all of his followers to become Brahmanas. Maybe some aren't able to, but that's unusual. Anybody who enters this movement, because the potency of this movement is so incalculable, that person can actually become Brahminical qualified. And there's no other way to become a Brahmin. Not by being born in a Brahmin's family, not by wearing a Brahmin thread, not by any external means, only by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. Somebody who's not a devotee of Krishna can't actually be a Brahmin. A real Brahmin means he must understand Brahma. And Brahma means, to really understand Brahma means to understand Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So we must chant. To become Brahmins, we have to become Vaishnavas. As we become purified, we become Vaishnavas, which are greater than Brahmanas. Vaishnavas, men or women, surpass Brahmanas. This was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's contribution and Srila Prabhupada's contribution. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced the Brahminical thread to so-called non-Brahmins, people who were not born in Brahmin families. And Srila Prabhupada introduced Brahminical status to women. There were a few before, but very, very rare were there women Brahmanas. Usually, if a man was a Brahmin, then his wife could become a Brahmin. Otherwise, no. So we must understand what Srila Prabhupada did was revolutionary. What Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did was quite revolutionary too, to make this very, very clear that non-Brahmins by birth can become Brahmanas and wear a Brahmin thread. And women can become Brahmanas. So what do we have to do to become Brahmins? We have to, first of all, chant, especially chant and dance in ecstasy. Very powerful method of purification. And we have to follow all the practices that Srila Prabhupada has given, to practice bhakti yoga, to practice devotional service to Krishna. And we must read Srila Prabhupada's books and what else about Srila Prabhupada's books? We must read them and study them and talk about them, hear them, and we must distribute them. As we heard the other day, if we don't distribute this knowledge, if we don't preach, we are committing violence to the living entities. And those who distribute books very quickly get Srila Prabhupada's mercy and become elevated, purified. So we should always, even if we have other services, we should try to distribute some of Srila Prabhupada's books. Anybody who does it experiences how Srila Prabhupada is so pleased and how quickly we become purified. So what are the qualifications of a Brahmin? That we must strive for, Bhagavad Gita 1842, Shamodamastapa Shaucham Kshantir Arjavam Evacha Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Swabhavacham. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, and wisdom, and religiousness. So in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he explains all these in Bhagavad Gita 1842. We should meditate on these qualities and see how we are achieving them or failing to achieve them. Pray to Srila Prabhupada to please help us become Brahmanas, because the world needs Brahmanas. Without Brahmanas, the world is like a blind person, doesn't know where he or she is going. So we must pray to Srila Prabhupada to help us become real Brahmanas, qualified Brahmanas who have these qualities, qualifications of a Brahmana. So it's difficult, especially, well, for everyone in Kali Yuga. Although it might be easier for Indians, people born in India and Indian bodies, than it is for Westerners. Srila Prabhupada once said that trying to make his Western disciples qualified Brahmanas was like trying to wash coal. And yesterday, Rupa Prabhu mentioned one devotee who simply could not gain the Brahminical qualifications, one of his disciples who was always disturbed by sex desire. But Srila Prabhupada forgave him, engaged him, and at the end of his life, although he had fallen into quite a degraded condition, because he and his good wife had been instrumental in establishing Prabhupada's movement in Australia. So the Australian devotees sent him airfare to fly to Australia. And there he was again surrounded by loving devotees and died very successfully. And another wonderful example is Prithu Putra Maharaj, or Prabhu. He was a sannyasi, did a lot of wonderful preaching. And after Srila Prabhupada left and there were a lot of difficulties, he fell down to a very degraded condition, practically as degraded as you could imagine. And he was French, and so one day a lady came to the Paris temple and asked, "Who is Prabhupada?" So they recognized her because devotees had gone to try to meet Prithuputra Prabhu, but he wouldn't let them in his apartment. But this lady came to the door and said, "He's not going to let you in." So this is how degraded he had become. So when the lady came to the temple and asked, who is Prabhupada? They said, "He's our spiritual master. Why do you ask?" And she started crying. And she told how her boyfriend had gotten very sick. I think it was a sexually transmitted disease. And maybe that's why he didn't want the devotees to come in, I don't know. But in any case, she said he was just lying on his bed, very weak, and couldn't even sit. Srila Prabhupada. I think he said, "Srila Prabhupada, you've come for me." Anyway. So, Srila Prabhupada loves us so much that if we do some service, he will do everything he can to save us. So we should always have faith that Srila Prabhupada is our well-wisher, and he will I mean, we can't guarantee that every one of us will get that mercy that Pritiputra Maharaj or Prabhu got. He got it. He did do a lot of service. But in any case, we should try. We should not put Srila Prabhupada to that difficulty to have to come like that. We should try to become qualified brahmanas. So it's not easy for Westerners to follow these regulative principles. I think today it's not easy for Indians either. I think it used to be much more easy. And as Masaruparu, I think, was just telling yesterday about, am I remembering correctly, Bon Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother, was sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to London to start preaching in the West. And Bon Maharaj and his brahmachari companion met Lord Jetland, who had been in India. And Lord Jetland asked, can I become a Brahmin? Can we become Brahmanas? Something like that. And Bon Maharaj said, yes, you can become a Brahmin. All you have to do is chant 16 rounds, or 64 rounds actually. You have to chant Hare Krishna and follow these 4 rules. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and no meat eating. And Lord Jetland immediately said, impossible. And he was right. It was impossible for Westerners to follow those rules. And in fact, when Srila Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement in America, he didn't even tell the 4 rules to the devotees. Even when the devotees were initiated, I'm going to read you a quotation from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the chapter, the first initiation. Some of the initiates didn't even know until after the initiation that the 4 rules were mandatory. 1 or 2 of them, or maybe more, may have been aware, but some of them had no idea that they had to follow these 4 rules until after they got initiated, and then they asked, Sasrut Maharaj explains that sometimes after getting initiated, then they asked, well, aren't there any things we have to do or rules we have to follow? And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, I'm very glad you asked. Thank you. And then he told them. So this was the difference between Srila Prabhupada and his godbrothers. Srila Prabhupada knew exactly how to preach in the Western countries. And the other reason why Srila Prabhupada was successful, as he himself said, was because he engaged women in Krishna consciousness, which one Maharaj actually did get one English lady to sort of become a devotee, but he didn't know how to engage her. So when Yamuna Devi, pure devotee of Lord Krishna, who we hear singing Govinda prayers every morning, she and her husband Guru Das and 2 other couples, young Americans, went to London on Srila Prabhupada's order. Although Bon Maharaj had to return back without any success to speak of, these 6 devotees were unbelievably, miraculously successful. So we should be very careful in thinking that women can't preach or are less intelligent. Not our women, Srila Prabhupada said. I mean, materially, women have a different type of intelligence than men. What we usually consider intelligence is, the Western idea of rational, IQ, but this is what Srila Prabhupada said. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Amogha-līlā 7:31-32 purport, Srila Prabhupada wrote, since both boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, those girls are not ordinary girls, but are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. As good as means equal, not less. In fact, the men might not be so happy to hear this. Srila Prabhupada wrote in a letter to Krishna Devi, February 17, 1970, now I see that in our society, the girls are more intelligent than the boys. Maybe the women are happy to hear that. Because in material life, women are less intelligent than men by the usual standards of intelligence. Although emotionally, in other ways, women are more intelligent. My observation, I shouldn't say this because I don't have any evidence from Shastra, other than this, what we see here from Srila Prabhupada. But although women are less intelligent in some important ways, perhaps more intuitive, that's my observation from women that I've known, my wife especially. Extremely intelligent in terms of intuitive empathy. Women are more empathetic. So in those ways, which is very important. So let's not make the mistake of thinking our women in Krishna consciousness movement are less intelligent. In fact, according to Shastra, women can become gurus too. There have been women gurus in our movement, in our society, I should say in our sampradaya. I don't think our movement has allowed it yet, is that right? I think the GBC is still struggling to get some holdouts in India to accept the possibility. But Chaitanya Charitamrita Amogha-līlā 8:128 says, Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra keni noi, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. So anyone, man or woman, who knows the science of Krishna can become a guru. And a Vaishnavo guru nasyat, Vaishnavasya shvapacho guru. A non-Vaishnava cannot become a guru, because a guru has to deliver us to the lotus feet of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Main duty of a guru is to liberate his or her disciples. So non-Vaishnava cannot do that. But a Vaishnava can, even if born in a family of shvapacha, dog eaters, literally. The lowest category of outcasts, lowest category of what Gandhi called Harijans, the lowest mentality, even they can become gurus if they have become Vaishnavas, if they chant Hare Krishna, accept the process, surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also affirms, Mam hi partha vipashritya ye pisyo papayona striyo vaishyas tata shudras te piyanti param gati. So anyone can reach perfection. Anyone can become a Brahmana, anyone who's a Vaishnava can become a guru, even Shudras and Vaishyas and women can achieve the highest perfection of existence by surrendering to Krishna and taking to Krishna consciousness. So, Srila Prabhupada stressed that boys are good and girls are good, men are good and women are good, but when they mix, when they come together, both become bad. And Srila Prabhupada has said this in several conversations. Fortunately, we have Google to help us find all these things, as I was just doing now. That statement that men are good and women are good, but when they come together, they both become bad. That was December 24th, 1975, in Bombay, on a morning walk. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said, together, they go to hell. If men and women mix freely, although they're good when they're separate, when they come together, they both go to hell. Pretty strong words. And on January 5th, 1976 in Los Angeles, and also on July 31st, 1976 in New Mayapur, and also in a letter to Gopal Krishna on the 19th of July, 1975, and another letter to Guru Das on the 22nd of December, 75, Srila Prabhupada repeated this very important instruction that he repeated several times. Boys are good, men are good, and the women are good. But when they come together, they both become bad. Now I'm going to tell you something that may shock you. Are you ready to get shocked? On July 10th, 1975, I was in Chicago, Srila Prabhupada's morning walk, and we had just been reading, as Prabhupada's Bhagavatam was coming out and being published, we were all reading the books. So I was reading the third canto, and in the 31st chapter, the 40th verse, the verse is, the woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. And it applies the other way too, I think. Women are Maya for men, and men are Maya for women. Is that my speculation? I don't know. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada writes in that purport, I'm reading it, even 50 years ago in Hindu society, such association was restricted. What kind of association? The association of men and women. Is restricted. So this is restricted for those who aspire to ascend to the transcendental platform. So how much is it restricted? If you haven't heard this before, you may not believe this, but this is what Srila Prabhupada said. Even 50 years ago in Hindu society, such association was restricted. A wife could not see her husband during the daytime. Householders even had different residential quarters. So when I read this, I was kind of stunned, as you probably are stunned if you haven't read it before. So I asked Srila Prabhupada on that morning walk, should we have this or introduce this standard in our movement? What do you think Srila Prabhupada said? No, it's not possible in our movement, but maybe in the future. And perhaps that's what he meant, but his reply was, and he paused for several seconds, he didn't answer. I guess he was asking Krishna, but anyway. And he kind of very softly went, like he was thinking or praying to Krishna for guidance. And then he said, yes, because fire and man is like butter. So I've been preaching in Pakistan for many years, and we had a very wonderful life member. In the 1980s, he became a life member, and he was the kaklar of a village. The Pakistani government never interfered with the Hindus practicing their religion. So we went to his village. In fact, later we had a padayatra, the area around his village, the area that he was in control of. Even though there were some Muslims living there, his village was 100% Hindu, but the area around there were Muslims, and we did, under his protection, we did padayatra. And this was confirmed to me, this question that I asked Srila Prabhupada, that actually not only is it possible, but it actually is being done even today, or at least it was 40 years ago in Pakistan, at least in these remote villages. This village was in the desert, right on the border of the place where there's no plants at all. It was the last inhabited area before the desert going to India. So I met him quite a few times. I went to his house. He was a very wonderful gentleman. In fact, he asked us to please help him do kirtan in the village, because a lot of the villagers were drinking alcohol and were taking drugs. They had a hard life living in the desert. So he asked us to help him uplift them. So we did a lot of kirtan going to the village. And one time when I had gone to see him, he said, my wife and daughters want to see you. They heard that an American sadhu has come. They want to see you. Oh, I'd never seen any women there in the house. So he took me out of the house where I'd always been meeting him and other friends of his. And there in the back, behind a wall, I guess the whole area was enclosed by a pretty high wall. There were his wife and daughters. And no men ever went back there except relatives. And maybe they had a servant or two, I don't know. But well, I'd never even known they were there. So actually that's how they lived. The men lived separately from the women. So we have to pray for intelligence, how to implement this in ISKCON. Maybe it's not possible immediately, but at some point we should consider how Srila Prabhupada goes on in this purport. 3:31:40. The internal quarters of a residential house were for the women, and the external quarters were for the man. So are there any questions or comments or corrections? I'm going to talk about Radharani as soon as we have a chance to ask a question or two about this. We have about 10 minutes or 7 minutes.
Yeah, real quick. The question that comes to mind, and thank you for the class, is, at least for myself personally, because I'm trying to preach and distribute books. You can hear it?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to preach and distribute books in New York City, and I find that quite often I have to preach to women, and in the programs that we run, I have to talk to women, and if nobody else is talking to a person, or nobody else is out there preaching to a person, just because they have a different body, should I not see them as a spirit soul and try to give them Krishna consciousness? Or what's my duty in that position?
Well, you have to be intelligent. I mean, for myself, if women are dressed very, like prostitutes, as many women do today, I generally don't approach them. It's dangerous. But we will be protected if we use our intelligence and approach women very carefully to distribute books. Certainly, Srila Prabhupada did not forbid that. Was that your question? And if we remember, these women are just, pale imitations of Srimati Radharani, and if we realize we're women also, actually, we are, we're Prakriti, we're not men, then we can do a little better and not look at them as objects of our enjoyment. So we're preparing for Radhastami, the holy appearance day of Srimati Radharani. So this is a puzzle for materialists, with the personality of Radha and Krishna. Materialists can never understand, because Radha and Krishna are one. Srimati Radharani is Krishna. And as Chaitanya Charitamrita explains, they became two for pastimes, and then they became one again in the person of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, for us, especially Westerners, but for everybody, for men, it's very easy to approach and understand Krishna as Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. A little more dangerous even because of our contamination. Worshipping Radha and Krishna is... I remember when I was a new devotee, I would never look at Radharani. I was afraid I might look in a way I shouldn't look. That's how degraded we are. But later, when I realized that she is actually Krishna, then no problem. And if we meditate on the fact that actually we are women, all men are really women. The only Purusha, the only male is Krishna. And Balaram, the Vishnu incarnations are male, but all of the devotees are female. Then we can approach women more easily and distribute books to them. But we should never look. Either women we're distributing books to or women in the temple. Men should never look at women. Should never talk with women unless it's absolutely essential for the service. Idle talks, I've heard some here in this temple, should be stopped. Very dangerous, Srila Prabhupada said. I'm going to read the rest of that purport. So the internal residential quarters were for the women, the external quarters were for the men. Acceptance of service rendered by a woman may appear very pleasing, but one should be very cautious in accepting such service, because it is clearly said that woman is the gateway to death, or forgetfulness of oneself. She blocks the path of spiritual realization. So men are good and women are good, but when they mix, they both become bad. So we should be very, very careful. Even to the extent, as Srila Prabhupada has explained, a man and his wife don't see each other. I can share one more thing. This is not from Srila Prabhupada, but this is from a scholar, a woman who went to India and studied Brahminical families. And she reported that the men and the women live separately in those Brahminical homes. And the husband and wife also, The wife comes and serves dinner to the husband, but they don't associate with each other except once a month. And that day, the mother of her daughter-in-law and son, when from the daughter-in-law finds out the time when she is most fertile during the month, on that evening in the dinner, she puts a chickpea, a garbanzo bean, a channa, into the, I guess it's usually lassi of some sort, chach of her son, and that is a sign that tonight he can sleep with his wife. So, we Westerners who are sleeping, actually not supposed to sleep in the same bed, but often we do. It's very difficult to follow that standard of having sex only once a month. But in Vedic culture, there's a whole system to make that easy. Srila Prabhupada said we, as young men or boys, were attracted to women, to girls, but there was no opportunity to meet them. The society was set up in such a way that a boy and a girl could not get together alone. Very good system. So we should try to, as far as possible, implement that in ISKCON. Boys and girls definitely should not be talking frivolously together. And should avoid looking at each other, and brahmacharis especially must be very, very careful. We were very strict in the beginning of our movement. At least I was. And I remember when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I'll just say one thing. This is how strict we were. Once on Sankirtan, we were doing intersection Sankirtan, the car pulled up and we rolled down the window. Howdy, man. This was in Atlanta, so I adopted a southern accent. Howdy, man. Here's your car freshener. And then we'd put an incense on their dashboard. They didn't know what incense was in those days. Americans didn't know about incense. So here's your car freshener. We're helping get kids off drugs. Then we'd ask for a donation to help get kids off drugs. And then they'd give $1 or some change. And then we'd hand them a Back to Godhead magazine. This explains a little bit about it. Most people wouldn't be interested in Back to Godhead magazine, but that's what we do. So one day there was a woman who had a low-cut dress on, and I looked momentarily only, but I went to my temple president and I told him that had happened to me. This is how serious we were about not looking at women. So if the brahmacharis ever look at a woman, it would be a good idea to tell Hasaru Prabhu, I looked at this woman, please help me. That's really the standard we should adopt. There's so many things in our movement that were followed very, very strictly in the beginning, at least by some of us. Just like, I'll mention one or two things which I've been wanting to say, but Prabhupada said, example is better than precept, so I haven't mentioned it, except briefly to one or two devotees. The way we dance with Srila Prabhupada behind us, we would never do that. When I was a new devotee in 1971, actually before that, men and women would be mixing freely, dancing in the kirtan, doing wherever they were. But by the time I joined, the women were on one side of the temple room and the men were on the other side. And Srila Prabhupada, we didn't have Murti, we had a picture of Srila Prabhupada on the Vyasasan, but we were told, and we believed, that Srila Prabhupada is personally present there. So we would never turn our back to Srila Prabhupada. We would actually face the women and men would face each other and look to the deities. We didn't have deities, we just had a Panchatattva when I joined. And then we would look at Srila Prabhupada, and we would not turn our back to Srila Prabhupada. What to speak of when Srila Prabhupada is present in his murti? Even there was just a painting of Srila Prabhupada, and we would never turn our back to Srila Prabhupada. We were aware that Srila Prabhupada is personally sitting there on the Vyasa. So I had mentioned to one devotee that how come you're turning your back to Srila Prabhupada like this? He said, well, this is the way we've always done it. So I thought, when Nanda Maharaj told Krishna, this is the way we've always done this, Indra Puja, Krishna wasn't very pleased with that. So I wasn't very pleased that, excuse, this is the way we've always done it, Srila Prabhupada instructed. And even now, when we teach devotees how to dance, or guests, what do we do? The Swami step. And if you've watched me during artis or kirtans, example is better than precept, but I'm mentioning it also. Having done it since I arrived here, Srila Prabhupada taught us to do the Swami step, and we always used to do only the Swami step. And then Srila Prabhupada taught one other thing. Srila Prabhupada, so how should we dance in front of the deity? So Prabhupada went up, started jumping up and down. So those were the two steps that Srila Prabhupada specifically introduced, and that's all we used to do in the beginning, whether on Sankirtan on the street or Kirtan in the temple, we would do those two steps only. Swami step, which is really good, I found out from a yogi, this twisting of the spine is the best yogic exercise. So when we're doing the Swami step, we're twisting our spine. Hare Krishna. All right, we will end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Amogha-līlā Prabhu ki
Yeah.
Amogha-līlā Prabhu ki